James returned to the sheds after his time at the works, so Tom had arrived to speak to him.
Well, James, we're glad you're back. Now knowing that you're a mixed traffic engine, you can pull coaches and freight cars easily. This red paint and new brakes should help you feel much better. Now go help Edward with a passenger train. Be careful.
Yes, sir.
And James steamed away to find Edward. Edward was at the station gathering up some coaches. James bustled in and looked at the splendor of the station.
Magnificent.
Come along, James. I can't pull this train without you.
James quickly backed into the train with Edward coupling up in front of him. James was excited and paying no attention to his surroundings. Before it was time to leave, James gave a big whoosh of steam. A shower of water got all over Sir Tom Hat's nice new top hat. The guard blew his whistle, and James quickly bumped into Edward. James tried to leave the station as fast as he could. James and Edward arrived at the next station, but came in too fast and braked too late. They were a few coaches away from the platform. They had to back up and wait to leave the station. James didn't want to stop, but decided not to upset the passengers. He was happy as nobody seemed to know about Topham's top hat. Thomas arrived and saw James in his new look.
Well, James, you seem to feel better. Ah, that's a guard's whistle. I better go. What would Sir Topham Hatt do without me running this branch line?
Thomas puffed away. James and Edward tried their best to be at the next station on time. They passed the field where James had had his accident. Soon, they reached Gordon's Hill. Edward told James about the time he had to push Gordon up the hill. James laughed and laughed till he got the hiccups. They arrived at the next station just in time. James hiccuped and scared an old lady who dropped her packages. 3 porters, a station master, and the guard had to help her with her packages. James was quiet that night in the sheds. He had had a wonderful day, but was worried about what Sir Tom Hat might say about his top hat. James woke up to see Sir Tom Hat standing right in front of him.
If you can't behave, I'll take your red paint and have you painted blue.
James didn't want that at all. James was angry and bumped the coaches without a single thought.
Don't talk. Come on. Gordon never had to deal with this rubbish of shunting your own coaches, and he's only painted blue. I'll show them. They think Gordon's the only one who can pull coaches.
James was going really fast. His pistons were pumping and his boiler bubbled. The coaches swayed from side to side. The coaches made James stop. James didn't want to stop, but they did.
What's the matter?
The brakes were hard on, leak in the pipe most likely. You've banged the coaches enough to put a leak in anything.
James fumed with rage. His driver and the guard checked for damages.
Well, we're going to need some newspaper and a leather bootlace.
Where am I to find a bootlace?
Ask the passengers.
You have a leather bootlace, I see, sir. Please give it to me. I will not. Well, I'm afraid the train will stop where it is. The passengers told the crew what a bad railway it was. Then they told the man how uncooperative he was instead. Everyone was really cross. Finally, the man handed his laces over. The driver and the guard fixed the hole in the pipe, and James puffed away. He felt wiser now, and decided not to be so rude to the coaches ever again. James was sulking and felt worried that he may not come out again.
Oh dear. Will anybody ever see my red coat again? Why was I so rude to the coaches and made my crew fix a hole with all things a passenger's bootlace?
Sir Topham had arrived.
I know you are sorry, and that you now know that every job on the railway is important. People are laughing at my railway, and I don't like that at all.
I'll try hard to do my best, sir.
That's a good engine. Now go gather some trucks and deliver goods.
Yes, sir.
After gathering up the trucks and having the goods loaded, James was chugging down the main line with a heavy load. As he puffed up the hill, the trucks saw their chance for mischief. James was wanting to make it up to the top as fast as his wheels would let him.
Come on! Will the top ever come?
As they reached the top, James felt great. Then, the trucks did their deed. Half the train went trundling down the hill. James felt lighter.
Hooray, I made it! Yay!
His driver looked back.
Oh no, we've left half the train behind.
A coupling had snapped. Presently, Edward was coming up the hill. He stopped the trucks from going any further. James came back to fetch them. Edward asked if James needed any help.
No thanks, I'm good.
James pulled and pulled like he had never done before. He reached the top and went downhill to the next station.
I did it! I did it!
James was resting when Sir Tom had arrived.
Oh no, what will he say?
Sir Topham Hatt was smiling.
I was on Edward's train and saw how determined you were in making sure that your train made it safely. You've made the most troublesome trucks behave, and for that you can keep your red coat of paint.
Thanks, sir.
Henry and Gordon would sometimes make fun of James about bootlaces. James would make them quiet and talk about Gordon's mishap on the hill when he couldn't pull his goods train, and would laugh and laugh.
You talk too much, little James. A stunning engine like me has something to talk about. I'm the only engine who can pull the express. Without me, they use 2 engines. Think of that. I've pulled express trains long enough to know the line by instinct.
Every wise engine knows that the signalman works the points to make engines run on the right lines, but Gordon was too prideful and had forgotten.
Wake up, James. It's time for the express. What are you doing? Jobs? Oh well, we have to start somewhere, can't we? Now run along and get my coaches. Don't be late.
At the station, James shunted the coaches before Gordon arrived. Gordon soon came and coupled up to the train. Sir Tom Hatt was on the train. Gordon left after the guard's whistle.
Look at me now, look at me now. Goodbye, little James. See you tomorrow.
James didn't care about what Gordon thought of him. He started shunting some trucks in the yards. Later on, he shunted some coaches for another train. James was just about to leave the platform when he heard a mournful noise. It was Gordon, trying to sneak into the station without being noticed.
Well, Gordon, is it tomorrow?
Gordon said nothing and let off steam nervously.
Did you lose your way, Gordon?
No, I went down the wrong line and had to turn all round back again.
Perhaps it was instinct.
All the passengers were angry. Sir Tom had talked to the crowd and promised them a new train at once. He looked to James, walked over to him, and asked,
James, Gordon can't pull the train. Will you pull it for us?
Yes, sir. I'll try.
He backed into the train and coupled in.
Do your best, James.
James pulled out of the station. James had a splendid time. He did his best to make sure that everyone was safe and comfortable. Gordon was working in the yards and saw James arrive. Sir Tom Hat was very impressed.
Well done. Would you like to pull the express sometimes?
Yes, sir.
Gordon had to admit that James did well with the express, and both of them became good friends. Whenever Gordon rested, James would pull the express. Gordon never talked of trucks, but both quite agreed on the subject of trucks.